Okay, so Harris has finally done an unscripted interview, sort of. If some those of you, if you're online, you've probably seen her interview with the CNN just go live a few hours ago, and I think the first thing you'll notice, and possibly one of the things that really pissed me off, was the fact that CNN decided to release the interviews in parts instead of just giving us the entire interview for some damn reason. So what you notice is that interview is in around 10-minute portions. It's in three parts, but before I kind of dive in too deep here, I did want to talk about the general feel of the interview. Um, I, I well, what you notice right away is that Vice President Harris is actually interviewed with her VP and Tim Walz. So it's not just her in this interview, and you'll hear some questions get directed at Tim Walz later in the interview in the interview as well. Don't worry, that gets juicy. We'll get into it. Don't worry. But in terms of the appearance of the interview, I would comment on the fact that Kamala Harris did seem kind of uh I don't know, a bit. I mean, she's a calm person, but she did seem kind of like a little bit unenthused, or just she just seemed a bit off, compared to the. I had expected maybe she would bring the energy that we've seen from like the campaigns and stuff, but again, this is a different setting. Maybe that contributed to it. But in terms of the particular, I thought I would actually hit this real quick. The reporter that interviewed Kamala Harris in this particular interview, her name is Dana Bash. And I must comment, just going through this interview before we get into anything too deep here, that I actually really respect this particular interviewer, because it's hard to be a reporter that Donald Trump, working for CNN, that Donald Trump doesn't hate, and somehow she has been able to actually achieve this. So props to her. And when you listen to this interview back, you realize that apart from the CNN's desire to sort of mock up the actual aesthetics of the interview with just chunking it up and almost making it seem so edited down and everything, it was actually a great interview. It wasn't softball, if you actually deep it, in my opinion. But Dana Bash is actually an interviewer that Donald Trump has expressed respect for in the past. So actually, she actually, again, I felt, delivered in this particular interview. So getting into it, my in terms of, I would say, I have to say that in terms of, apart from Kamala Harris seeming a bit, on the down low, calmly delivering. Maybe I'm just used to toxic confrontational interviews now with with kind of the temperature of the politics. Maybe that's why it threw me off a little bit. But for her first interview, I have to be honest. I wanted her. I would have loved to see her by herself. See how she handles these things. But you know, that's besides the point. But when it got down to the questions, I want to do. Obviously, the first question was on what is she going to do in her first day in office, to which she provided answers. But that particular segment of the interview ended with Dana Bash asking Kamala Harris about her incessant flip-flopping, which is kind of a feature of this particular candidate, right? She has been known to change her mind on certain issues, and for politicians that might be problematic, because it can seem like, oh, are you on the side of climate change, or are you on the side of fracking? Are you on the side of certain policies, or are you on the side of other policies? It's hard to pin you down, and this has been sort of an ongoing problem that people have had with Kamala Harris, where it seems like maybe in this campaign she's moderating a little towards the center, as against being that far left person that Trump has tried to paint her into. Maybe it's just a strategy they've come to, but to which her answer was basically, she maintains her values. For example, for example, the climate change thing and fracking. She feels, there are ways to kind of handle climate change, and also while still maintaining the economics of fracking as well, right? So that was her answer, and she obviously talks about like the about wanting a ceasefire in Israel, and some of those things. But I think that singular concept of Dana Bash, the reporter here, asking her about her flip-flopping, I think props to her, because this is not what I've come to expect out of CNN. I was not expecting them to try and actually put her on the spot like that. That said, Tim Walz, oh my God. This is why I said it did not need to be there for that. He did not need to be there, because he ended up being a problem. Because here's the thing. We now know that Tim Walz has been known to exaggerate on certain facts. For example, talking about, um, some of his comments have come to light as having been grossly exaggerated, sometimes being a little bit modified. For example, in a rally not too long ago, referring to his service in the National Guard, he described carrying weapons in war. That has been proved that, well, he didn't actually see active combat in I think it was in Afghanistan. So, and there's other facts that have come to light about Tim Walz, about the fact that he tends to exaggerate things. And even Dana Bash pointed out the fact that he talked about his wife and him having to go through IVF treatment. Well, that turned out to be not IVF treatment. And so again, these half truths, these exaggerations, they're problematic. And how did Tim Walz answer these questions? Well, he had no answer. this is exactly what it was. He had zero answer to the question about him exaggerating on facts or blatantly lying. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't know, 70% of the population of the world embellishes their resume, maybe even more. You know yourselves, yeah. People embellish their resume and all that, but obviously in public office, it's been yeah, it was not a good look. That's just all I'm going to say about that. He did not have any answers. So I thought it was actually very interesting that CNN, as friendly as they are to Democrats, actually asked that question. They asked him about these incessant lies and exaggerations. Come to think of it, I actually wonder now why Kamala Harris picked him as her VIP pick. Obviously, Tim Walz is a play on trying to kind of appeal to that moderate, that kind of like people of the Midwest type of voter, and and a lot of those people tend to be a bit more, on the Republican side. And I guess on the Republican side, a lot of people are used to the lying and sometimes exaggerations of Donald Trump. So I'm not. This is just speculation on my part. This is just speculation on my part. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. So the fact that CNN actually tried to push him and push Kamala Harris on these negative points in their public persona, I thought was pretty good. Now, one thing I will say, I've talked about the fact that CNN sort of pieced up this interview in a way that really pissed me off and made everything just seem scripted and edited. Now, you could argue, you could argue that proves the point that it was scripted and edited. But what that does is it kind of feeds into the point that Donald Trump has always said, that Kamala Harris needs a handheld, that she's incapable of actually speaking on points by herself. She's not incapable of handling herself. Now, I have a speculation, and this is purely me. I have no evidence of this. This is purely me. Obviously, I do interviews here on the Wolf of Young Street podcast. Now, when people come on the show, I record. I tend to not do live interviews, and when people come on the show, they say everything they want to say. At the end, I give them a chance to redact parts of what they may have said, because sometimes people say dumb shit. Right? I give people a chance to kind of take back if they feel like something they said might compromise their standing in a different, say maybe at a job or something like that. When I do these interviews, I give people a chance to redact that. And you'll see that in my interviews. You see some of the edits I do, right? Now, as it pertains to Kamala Harris here, I think that, them chunking up that interview maybe proves that that particular interview is not as unscripted as you might think. Okay? Which I think creates more problems than it offers answers to people who wanted a bit of reassurance about what kind of a leader Kamala Harris is. Okay, but now she's done the interview. Now she's actually, she's put herself out there, and come September 10th, it looks like she's actually going to debate Donald Trump, and I think this is going to be pivotal because right now we're at 68 days towards the election. At that point, we'll be even closer. If she gets, I shouldn't say this, but if she gets her ass beat by Donald Trump in the debate, it's done. That's the end, really. So she has to bring it, and she has to bring some energy. She has to portray some strength. Okay. So that was obviously that was just an instant reaction. I haven't dived deep here into some of the nitty-gritty and all that. To be fair, nothing they said in that interview was particularly new. And I'm going to end on this note. I wish that people would actually. I would like to give even more props to Dana Bash for doing what I consider to be a really professional interview. Again, as I said, the calmness of the interview made I kind of had flashbacks to something to I don't know if you guys remember like the interviews with the interview with that Donald Trump gave to the National Association of Black Journalists. Remember how unprofessional that particular journalist was? I contrast that to this. Yeah. So yeah, I'll end on that note. Obviously, this is just an instant reaction. I may do like a deeper dive. I don't think there's much to talk about. You all go catch that interview and let me know in the comments what you think about this interview. Okay. If you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe down below. I'll see you guys on the next one. See you later.